County Investment Advisory Committee on the 25th day of July 2024 in Commissioners' Chambers. Our first item on the agenda is the call to order. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Treasurer Zorin.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Ravitch.
Here.
Next on our agenda is approval of the minutes for our meeting of April 11th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve waiving reading of the same?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The minutes are adopted. Next on our agenda is old business. Any old business before the Investment Advisory Committee? Hearing no old business, on to new business with our investment review from Eileen Stanek with our investment strategy update.
Thank you and good morning. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to provide the update. As always, and as we know, 2024 has certainly been an interesting year. One of the factors as we all know, too fast, is when we look at what's happening with interest rates. There's really these four components that drive interest rates and result into the yields. We kind of refer to this as the Figgy outlook. So when we look at the Fed funds rate, we know Chair Powell has cautioned the market to expect patience, but rate cuts are on the table. It's just a matter of when, not if. In addition, inflation has remained a little bit sticky. It's taken a little bit longer for inflation rates to drop. And actually, the Fed chair doesn't expect them to hit the 2% target till 2025-26, but he's made it very clear that the Fed does not need to see inflation at 2% before moving forward with rate cuts. Growth in the U.S. economy is expected to slow. Now, granted, we just received this morning the second quarter GDP print at 2.8%, which has been a little bit of a head scratcher as far as where is that growth coming from, since many of the signs have been that growth is slowing. So more to come on that. That was really fresh news this morning. Employment, labor market is returning to normal, kind of a normalization approach. We now have the unemployment rate ticked up above 4%, still historically low, relatively speaking. And when we think of trend, unemployment in an environment where the economy is not overheating, that 4% level is pretty much a benchmark. And all of this has translated into yields, particularly longer term yields, being range bound, we would call them. So meaning they've been trading in a very tight range. Although we did mention, I think last time, that October of 23, we did see the peak in rates at that point, but we really have not moved too far below those levels. So the key question is, I keep my hand off this. Key question is, how much rate cuts are we expecting to see? This is looking at the Fed funds futures market, which gives us an indication of what the market is expecting will happen to that overnight rate. If we look through December of 2024, we can see that the market is expecting cumulative reduction in the overnight rate by about 0.70%. So that would infer that the market is expecting 3 rate cuts in 2024, and those rate cuts continuing into 2025, as we can see cumulative expected rate cuts of 1.8%. So clearly that would put our overnight rates, which have been above 5%, to clearly below that 5% level, starting to approach below the 4% levels as well. The question has come up of late that, of course, we are in an election year. Is the Fed political or apolitical, as they say? So we went back and looked at the change in interest rates during all years versus the change in interest rates during a general election like we're facing here next quarter. And so we can see during all years the Fed has moved rates on average. This is an absolute basis, so this is sometimes up, sometimes down. Just under 3 percentage points movement. When we look at general election years, that rate change has been a little higher, but not something that's off the charts. So we know that the election will not cause the Fed to stop with what their expected path is. And that being said, we do continue to expect rate cuts in 2024. Inflation, big elephant that we've been combating all along. Consumer Price Index topped out at 9.1% back in the summer of back in the summer of 2022. Sorry about that little eye effect here. Is now come down to 3%. But the Fed's favorite measure is the core personal consumption expenditure, which now stands at 2.6%, topped out at 5.6%. So this is the measure that the Fed is saying they have the target of 2%. As we can see, that core number has been relatively stable here in the last few months, has started to show some signs of starting to continue to drop. But again, we don't expect to get to that 2% level here in the next month or two. It will just take time. The key is the path continuing. GDP growth, economic growth in the U.S. Expectations are for growth to slow in 2024. As we can see when we look at the Bloomberg survey, by the time we get into the fourth quarter of 24, first quarter of 25, expectations are for growth to be below 2%. We want to remember that trend growth is generally 3%. So clearly any growth, economic growth, expansion of the U.S. economy below that level would be a slowing economy. But the good point is that we're not expecting a recession at this point. This is the chart that's showing the range-bound nature of the long-term interest rates. And long-term, when we mean the world that we operate in, longer term would be the 2-year to 5-year. The blue line is the 2-year Treasury. The orange line is the 5-year Treasury. Again, we're looking back over the past 20 years. So as we can see, yes, those rates here since 2022 have been range-bound, been bouncing around between that 4 and 5% levels, and that's highest levels that we experienced since 2007. So clearly, as we take this into consideration with the county's investment portfolio, we're looking to lock in these rates that we have not seen in 20 years to provide stability on interest income. So the oops, got the PowerPoint, not the PDF. So the county's investment portfolio here, as we look at it, cash of $206 million, that includes $43 million of the engineering utility dollars, $276 million of securities. So really no marginal change there other than interest being reinvested. A weighted average maturity, we're a little short here as we've started to take into consideration from an investment standpoint funds that may be needed for the service facility over the next couple years. Weighted average maturity is at 3.14%. That has been rising as we've been reinvesting at higher rates.
And Mrs. Stanek, I wanted
Yes.
to point out something on the slide. That we're in a very good position in Lake County. I looked at the maturing securities over the next 6 months, and there's about $28 million maturing at a rate of 2.39%. And we are currently, with the current rates in the market right now, we'll probably be reinvesting those in the low to mid 4% range. So just maturing securities and reinvesting them, the county realizes a significant gain.
Yeah, very fortunate position to be in. And we've also included on the maturity distribution graph, of course, the yields on the securities within each yield bucket. And so we can see, particularly looking at that 4 to 5 year bucket, those securities, that $33 million, we were able to lock in rates on average of 4.44%. The 3 to 4 year bucket of $52 million is yielding just shy of 4%. So clearly, as we do have these maturities and as the longer term rates do remain range bound, that we will be in a position to continue to improve that long term position for the county as we would look to lock the rates in. Again, we're making certain that we're looking at all investment opportunities so that the portfolio is diversified and all security purchases are permissible under the county's investment policy as well. So that being said, there's any other questions or comments?
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Stanek?
I wanted to thank Mrs. Stanek and Meter Public Funds for their extensive knowledge and expertise and all the time they have taken to help develop the investment portfolio for the county. We are really well positioned for a strong and sustained return over the next 2, 3, 4 years with a good yield return. So thank you for all your hard work on that portfolio.
Oh, you're welcome. We appreciate it, and we're really honored to serve as advisor to Lake County.
Any further discussion?
I'd also like to thank you and thank Treasurer Zurin. This is, comes at a time where I think we need it the most, and if we can ride this wave as long as possible, then I'm all for it. And it's good to hear that some of the stuff that we had invested in lower percentages is still going to be higher. So timing is everything. I get it, but if you can make it last another 30 years, Mike, that'd be great.
I'd like to be here another 30 years.
Very good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. So the public knows at 10 a.m. we will roll into our regular commissioner meeting. We still have a few minutes before we can begin, but at 10 a.m. we will begin.
Thank you.
Just warning.
Yes. Let me
Just wondered because
Summer.
that's what I gotta look into is in the age, and I know we have that.
You get right around there. Like, yeah, I don't count your name. I don't count your name.
You don't count name and
I try
address.
to start after that.
All right, good, good.
Oh, we went from it's okay to it's fine. Oh, all right.
Yeah, she is. I hate it when I forget where I caught paths with people. You understand?
the 29th regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, please bless our meeting today. May our discussions be fruitful, our decisions wise, and our community strong. Amen.
Amen.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present. Next on our agenda is public comment. Any member of the public wishing to address the board, please step forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Point at somebody. Preempted.
Chris Weiss from Leroy. Boss Plechnik, my comments today are based on your actual computer browser history and official documents received through public information requests. For beginners, it's always best to start with you are here. So let's start with something no one can deny, especially you, Boss Plechnik. You got caught and admitted to teaching college classes out of your commissioner's office using county resources for your own profit. You self-reported through your white-collar crime attorney with the encouragement of the prosecutor. You even donated the profits from your out-of-state teaching to the NAACP. You got a sweetheart deal from the Ohio Ethics Commission. All you had to do was to admit to what you did, all of what you did, to not deny what you did in any way going forward, and to take a 1-hour online ethics class. By the way, did you get an A in that class too? We haven't heard. No press releases on that. Let's break this down and keep it simple. Since you're just a tax law professor and you're not admitted to practice law in Ohio, you really probably don't understand the law any more than you're getting a doctoral level A in ethics prevented you from violating the law. Let's just assume for today's installment you really didn't know what you were doing. When you donated the profits from your out-of-state teaching to the NAACP, apparently it didn't occur to you to donate the profits from your job at Cleveland State University School of Law. When you self-reported, it didn't occur to you to report running your election campaign, your Facebook page, and your website using your county computer and resources in your county office. Did you consider it would be appropriate to donate your campaign fundraising monies that were tied to your campaign activities using those county resources? Probably not. Did you disclose taking the Ohio Realtor Survey, seeking their endorsement? Did you donate any campaign contributions from that one? Clearly, you're pretty excited about your doctoral level A in ethics. You were pretty quick to put together a press release and start distributing it. What's interesting about this is most people, when they're happy about an accomplishment, they treat themselves to, let's say, a steak dinner. But not you, Boss Plechnik. It looks like you treated yourself to buying gold bullion. Can you tell me how that relates to the common man? How you're supposed to be Mr. No Taxes, No Nonsense, the common sense commissioner, buying gold bullion using county resources. Did you get a better price because you were buying off the government network? Let me end here, as there's always next week, to discuss your superior intellect and how you got the sweetheart deal with the Ohio Ethics Commission. It begs the question, as a kingmaker, are you too big to fail? By the way, I'm done in under 3 minutes. Last week I went 8 seconds over to complete a sentence I was speaking. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion?
Good morning, gentlemen, our commissioners, president. The city of Painesville would like to thank John Hammercheck, the NOACA Executive Director Grace Gelucci. NOACA created a regional climate action plan that enabled the city of Painesville to apply for a U.S. EPA climate pollution reduction grant program funding. As a result of Commissioner Hammercheck and Executive Director Grace Gelucci bringing together the right parties for the city of Painesville, along with the city of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and were recently awarded $129 million in CPRG funding. The city of Painesville received $80 million to install a 35 megawatt solar project along with a 10 megawatt battery at the former Diamond Shamrock Superfund site. I have 3 minutes. Give me a second. This will allow the city of Painesville to transition to our peak power coal-fired power plant to fire solar while providing clean and cost-efficient electric for our residents. Again, we would like to thank our Commissioner Hamercheck and Executive Director Gallucci and NWACA for bringing the parties together that resulted in the city of Painesville being awarded $80 million of the $129 million CPRG funding. Thank you. Is there any questions? We do appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public portion?
That's a tough one to follow. Well, you got the bell though, you know, that's good. Yeah.
Don't drop it.
No.
I think you lost a quarter there.
It's costing, yeah. That's okay. You don't have to tithe when you come up or leave a quarter at the podium.
Chris Bahari, West Jackson, Painesville. So, as our statement, with God, all things are possible. And I'd just like to reflect again, and as we start our meeting each week, to have a moment of silence for calmness of heart and calmness of family. And let us be the family of Lake County that really embodies the hope of establishing a community of true love. And we thank you very much for the wonderful party in the park last weekend, and this week ongoing Lake County Fair. And all those that are attending and coming from all around, that this is a celebration of Lake County family. So let us have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Lima, Litchfield Drive in Mentor. Good morning, Commissioners. Christian nationalism is being promoted by some, despite the clear intention of our founders to avoid such a national religious ideology. Not only do we find language in the First Amendment, Clause 3, and also Article 6, Clause 3, and multiple court decisions that support their intention. Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist is further evidence of the founders' intention. James Madison said that the separation of church and state is the greatest gift to both the church and the state. It is clear that the founders advocated for and intended that there be separation of church and state. At last week's meeting, 3 speakers invoked God in their public comments. Of course, First Amendment protections provides them with their right to freely do so. But following the public comment, Board President Pleshnik invoked personal privilege to quote from the Bible. Quoting of Scripture by public officials may explicitly or implicitly endorse Christian national views. Community members who share their religious beliefs, who share other religious beliefs, or no religious beliefs, have serious concerns about the creep of Christian nationalism in public meetings. This trend can contribute to the marginalization of minority religious groups and secular viewpoints for public disclosure and discourse. This exclusion can be subtle but powerful, influencing who feels welcome or represented in public meetings. I should note that conservative political views and Christian beliefs and values are not and should not be equated with Christian nationalism. A political ideology masquerading as faith and rooted in the belief that America was created for white European Christians. Inclusion of conservative and liberal political views, Christian and non-Christian values is the hallmark of a well-functioning democracy. Overall, while public meetings are meant to be inclusive space for civic engagement, the influence of Christian nationalism can subtly shape discussions, policies, and overall atmosphere in ways that privilege Christian perspectives over others. Recognizing and addressing these influences is crucial for maintaining a pluralistic and inclusive public sphere.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion?
Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, on behalf of Lobbyists for Citizens. I watched the last commissioner meeting regarding the new Public Safety Center, and I compliment Jason Boyd for his very fine presentation. If I understand the numbers correctly, it is estimated that the new jail will cost approximately $200 to $205 million. There is $75 million immediately available in cash, possibly another $10 million from other existing accounts, and the balance to be financed with long-term debt with annual payments of $7 to $7.2 million per year. The current inside millage generates $1.7 million, and the current annual payment of $1.2 million for the courthouse debt will be finished and may be used for the jail debt. That leaves $4 to $5 million needed each year to complete the annual payment. If I'm wrong, I'd love to be educated on that, if my numbers are wrong. I have a suggestion to save $250,000 per year and perhaps use that amount to pay down the debt. The current practice of sending out annual newsletters and refrigerator magnets from the commissioner's office can save $250,000 per year. A public records request showed that the commissioner spent $748,826.49 since 2021. We submit that paying off the debt is more important than sending out refrigerator magnets with the commissioner's pictures on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Bishop.
Gerard Mebel, Bishop, 1049 Brentwood Drive, Pennsville. President Plechnik, Commissioner John Hamercheck, Commissioner Richard Wigovich. President Plechnik, when you receive your amendment to become a commissioner, you had a Bible in your hand, and you allowed me to hold on that Bible. There are 1,000 other people that you could, but you did choose me, and I just want to say thank you for that. I just want to say thank you that you are a Christian and you don't hide it. You are everywhere. Every time I look, I see you are in a church. I'm representing 45 churches in this area plus. And in Cleveland, I'm representing over 5,000 churches, and I'm even a treasurer for United Pastors. It is good to be a Christian. Nothing is wrong of being a Christian. When I was born, I was not born a Christian, but thank God for someone that came from Puerto Rico that introduced my mother and myself. In my country, we were born with voodooism. I remember one day I saw someone digging a hole. I said, "Who are you going to put in this hole?" He said, "A little pig. Consider me as a pig." But thank God for this great country. In this great country, even in the currency, it says, "In God we trust." In this great building we have, with God, all things are possible. I hope this great country, this great America, and everyone that have met me for 40 years never stop being a Christian. It's okay. We love everybody, but nothing is wrong of being a Christian. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else?
Good
Good morning, Commissioners. Dale Fellows, 2812 Fowler Drive. So I just wanted to commend Painesville, the city of Painesville. I see Doug Lewis is here. What a wonderful party in the park they had this weekend. It was great, and the weather was awesome. I know Doug ordered that, right? So that was wonderful. And now we have our great county fair going on, of which everything looks just fabulous, and just commend our community for that, and hoping that everybody from Lake County gets a chance to go to that. I didn't have this on my agenda until just now, and I heard Mr. Lima speak, but the Constitution clearly says freedom of religion. It doesn't say freedom from religion. So almost every single body, public body or even private body, opens their proceedings with a prayer, as you all do, and references to God. So certainly that has been the basis of our religion and our culture and our country. Judeo-Christian values started this great, wonderful nation. And if you do enough research on the founding fathers, you will find that they were very, 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 very much, God was a major part of all of their lives. And then just in reference to the person who kind of keeps coming up to the podium once a week, and those that are obviously trying to influence him and feeding him false information for their own political and personal agendas. I hope that he gets his help that he needs. It's embarrassing to him, to his family, and to our county. And hopefully he'll realize that someday soon. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion?
Mr. President, I'd just like to tell, I told Mr. Lewis before the party in the park that the commissioner sponsored the weather.
$80 million worth.
Good morning, Matthew Heberbrand, 403 Heisley Park Lane. Commissioners, I was surprised to have my name referenced at a public commissioners meeting last week. Not my capacity as a public official, as a trustee of Lakeland Community College, or even in my public capacity as assistant county prosecutor in Ashtabula County, Ohio, but in my capacity as a Republican Central Committee member. And I admit that's a quasi-public function. I am elected by my fellow Republicans in my precinct in the city of Painesville. And one of the things that I go around when I'm earning their vote and their trust is talking about the need to hold our Republican elected officials accountable, accounting them to our Republican principles and common decency, which at a bare minimum, I believe, should be following the law. And in regards to Mr. Hallam, he had a long history of violating our Republican Party's bylaws by endorsing Democrats, but what crossed the line is when he was caught in the act of stealing the campaign signs of his opponent, and not only that, in a clear conscious sign of his consciousness of guilt, he recklessly drives over a median and drives away. That is the basis of that censure motion that was referenced last week. And I believe it is shameful that public officials are using people like Mr. Weiss to attack private individuals when the only person that I know of in this room that publicly is still under the cloud of investigation, unfortunately, is you, Commissioner Hamercheck. The greatest unsolved crime in Lake County history pertains to the actions that took place the night of the primary election in 2020. And as we all know, and as a proud Republican member of the Central Committee, I stand with former President Donald Trump in regards to protecting the integrity of our elections, and I understand that the Democrats in this county will instead use that as an attack against the Republicans in this county because of your action, or because of the actions allegedly attributed to you, Commissioner Hamercheck. So I hope to clear the record to, and again, holding yourself and the county accountable. Why is it that your ID card was used in your office that night? Why was a non-county owned laptop plugged into an Ethernet port from that office attempting to connect to our Board of Elections server? And why is it that when public records were requested to show the videos of that night, even though it is my understanding that those video records automatically delete only when there is not enough space on the server for those videos, why were the videos for those videos deleted? I'd say a good prosecutor would be able to show the evidence of that deletion as evidence of consciousness of guilt. And I hope and pray that there was nothing that happened. Thank you.
Mr. Hebebrand. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else? Anyone else? Hearing none, on to resolutions. Madam Clerk.
And the Engineer's Office, resolution approving plans and specifications for the villas of Canterwood Farms Phase 3 in Concord Township.
I like the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
And the Utilities Department, resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $122,415.04 for water lines for the villas at Canterwood Farms Phase 3 subdivision in Concord Township, job number 24-20.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
Resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $112,518.59 for sanitary sewers for the villas at Canterwood Farms Phase 3 subdivision in Concord Township, job number 24-20.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
Resolution approving plans and specifications and estimates of cost in the amount of $2,300,000 for Gary L. Crone Water Reclamation Facility Digester Cleaning and Rehabilitation Project number 461S, 2022, and advertising for bids for the same, bid opening August 28, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
Resolution approving final change order number 2 with Neroni and Sons Incorporated for Adams Court Industrial Park and Melridge Pump Station Improvements Project number 415S, 2018, decreasing the total contract amount by $69,054.84.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
Resolution certifying unpaid water and sewer sums and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechner.
Yes.
And the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing execution of a design-build agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and the Gilbane Building Company to perform design and construction services for the proposed construction of the Lake County Public Safety Center in an amount not to exceed $7,471,549.
Move to approve.
Second.
I would add in discussion, this is a momentous move forward on behalf of the county to build the jail, the safety center for Lake County, Ohio, without raising taxes. It's been a lot of work, as we've referenced Mr. Boyd's review, our work with consultants, but this is a momentous step forward, and we're very grateful to our staff, to the people of Lake County for working with us to make sure this got done. Any further discussion?
Can we have our administrator give us a background of exactly what this means, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Commissioners. Yeah, the contract before you this morning will be the first substantial agreement with Gilbane, which is the design-build team. The contract, this signifies the transition to the design-build team. So if we recall from the presentation, HOK has been our primary design team. This particular contract signifies Gilbane, K2M, and Lakeland Construction Group kind of handing off the project to those three entities, led by Gilbane. K2M becomes the architect of record, or otherwise known as the AOR on this project, where Gilbane, HOK, and Lakeland, Gilbane, K2M, and Lakeland will finish the construction documents, so endings 8 and 9, and ultimately issue the county the GMP, the Guaranteed Maximum Price, which will essentially be our final budget number that we'll work off here later this summer. The $7 million includes pre-construction services work, continued design and engineering efforts, and then provides some liquidity on some of those potential early procurement packages I noted last week and previous weeks that may or may not include generators, site work, cells, and so on.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution confirming the appointments of Concord Township Trustee Morgan McIntosh and Painesville Township Trustee Chuck Hillier made by the Lake County Townships to the Lake County 911 Program Review Committee and certifying members to the Lake County 911 Program Review Committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? I would just add our thanks to Trustee Morgan McIntosh as well as Trustee Chuck Hillier for their service. They always are willing to help and step up, and it's important for the safety of our residents to have them there. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $2,795,744.53.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $842,347.43.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Excuse me. Yes.
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations within various general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Rigovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes. With the conclusion of resolutions, it's time for departmental reports, starting with utilities.
No report this week, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And Job and Family Services.
No report this week, thank you.
Well, I think we have to note that this is Family Day at the Lake County Fair, is it not?
That's true, it is, and I mentioned it last week, so I didn't know if I should overdo it by mentioning it again, but thank you for bringing that up. Today is Kids' Day at the fair, and I know it's a day that my staff always look forward to. It's a day that we're able to get out amongst the children of the community and engage in positive activities with the kids. So I have staff members heading over to the fair in a couple hours to set up our station for the Kids' Day activities that take place from 1 until 3, and then they will be at the fair throughout the rest of the evening tonight. So looking forward to making my way over to the fair either today or tomorrow or the next day, and thank you again, Commissioner, for recognizing what an important day this is for the children of Lake County as well as all of their family members.
Well, thank you for all that you do, and I will see you at the fair, the great, the grand, the fantastic Lake County Fair. All right. Our County Administrator, Jason Boyd.
Thank you, Commissioner. Briefly, City Manager Lewis is here. I just want to, and I noted this to the commissioners in my presentation last week, how great the partnership has been with the City Manager Council and their staffs. Well, for a long time, going back to this building, but in particular the past year on the design of the Safety Center. Doug and his Community Development Department led us through the Planning Commission process and Board of Zoning Appeals process the past 2 weeks. Really top shelf job done by his staff. I made those comments at the Planning Commission meeting, so I want to echo that for the record with the City Manager here, so thank you for that. And we'll continue to work with him, through the construction phase. Secondly, on the Public Safety Center project, we continue to have another finance discussion today, with Eileen from Meter this morning on taking a look at what those investment earnings look like over the next 5 years to assist in the jail finance strategy that Mr. Massey referenced. So for the most part, those numbers at this stage, until we button up things around Labor Day, are pretty close. And as I noted last week, we'll have our bond rating call the second week of August. We're hoping for some good news there. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do think it's worth noting on the topic of the jail funding and finance plan that not all of the debt we're proposing is long-term. The hope is to have a mix of short-term and long-term debt so that we can front-load the payments, given that we know interest rates are higher, the more we can pay down earlier, the better. So there's actually a strategy there of a mixture of short-term notes and long-term bonds.
Yeah, correct. And hopefully, in an ideal world, if you look out at, we have a 5-year callable, we're gaining positive interest earnings right now. We understand that expectation to come down to that $5 million norm of budgeting. But if we call them at a lower interest rate down the road, we may save money on our next level of debt. So that's Jason's ideal situation, but there's some past precedent and trends that may come to fruition. So, but we're still budgeting uber conservative up and through the bond rating and ultimately the GMP.
Very good. And I would just second your remarks about the city of Painesville. We are so lucky to have City Manager Doug Lewis and his council as our partners in this project. It wouldn't be possible without your help, and we're looking forward to having a true civic structure in downtown Painesville that will serve the purpose of the sheriff and promoting safety in our community, but will also reflect the neighborhood of City of Painesville and downtown so that residents can be proud of what we're building together. So, anything further for the county administrator? Then on to Madam Clerk.
The next commissioner meeting will be next week, and it is Tuesday, July 30th at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Very good. And legal?
No report.
Thank you. With the conclusion of reports, it's time for old business. Any old business to come before the commission? Well, I would repeat that old business is typically the point where commissioners have an opportunity to respond if there are items of public comment that they wish to share input on. Sometimes it's commented, when do commissioners have that opportunity? Old business is the appropriate time. And I would echo and emphasize what former Commissioner Dale Fellows shared with us, which is this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values, and the founders were explicit in their faith and their belief. It's often referenced, Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist Association as the first statement of the separation of church and state. And it may well be the first time that a phrase similar to that was used. I believe that Mr. Jefferson referred to a wall of separation were his exact words. But what a lot of folks don't understand is the historical context of what separation of church and state meant to early Americans. In England, there was a state religion. And so the Establishment Clause of the Constitution was put in place to prevent the government from establishing one religion that we were all forced to be a part of, something that the founders would have strenuously objected to. Whether it's one brand of Christianity or a completely different faith, they recognized we should all have freedom of religion. But to say that Thomas Jefferson believed there should be no prayer in public meetings, no prayer in schools, no faith shown in the public square would not be a fair representation of his personal beliefs. In his work and treaties with Indian reservations as the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson used taxpayer funds for missionaries and church building. And I believe he actually funded Catholic missionaries, although he wasn't Catholic because he just felt so strongly that some faith was better than none. I'm not here to say that the federal government should copy our third president, Thomas Jefferson, and expend tax dollars to build churches, but I am saying that to use him as an example of the idea that we should drive faith from the public square, or that citing a Bible passage or saying a prayer at a meeting would be offensive to Thomas Jefferson, he would build a church with taxpayer dollars. He would hire missionaries with taxpayer dollars. It's a very different perspective. And I think we need to be fair to history and understand Mr. Jefferson's perspective. That doesn't mean you have to share it, but to cite him for the proposition that he'd be offended by a biblical passage being read at a meeting would not be a fair position to attribute to President Jefferson. Quite the contrary, he'd wonder why we aren't using taxpayer dollars to build churches instead of jails. He'd probably say we'd need less of the former if we had more of the latter. But once again, we don't have to share his position. I just don't want to misrepresent his position. Anything further for old business?
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you for the clarification. I was operating under the misconception that this would be new business when commissioners can respond to the public. So thank you for correcting my misconception on that. There's a lot to unpack here today, and I will start with welcome back, Mr. Lyman. It's always good to see you, sir. I do feel compelled and I think it's no secret, Commissioner Plechnik and I have our differences, but I have to defend him on this one. Any reference or inference that he has anything to do with white nationalists, racism, marginalization of other religions, I have seen no evidence of that. Commissioner Plechnik and I have our differences. I want to emphasize that, but I do not believe this is one of them.
Mr. President, or excuse me, I say this to perhaps the longest-serving president.
Thank you, sir.
But I do feel the need to interject just because I do not believe at any point in time Mr. Lima in any way insinuated that a commissioner was racist or espoused white nationalism. It wouldn't be fair to attribute that to him. I think he was concerned with religious statements being made. It is his right to be concerned and his right to make that statement. But just as I don't want to put words in Thomas Jefferson's mouth, I don't want to put words in Mr. Lima's mouth either.
Fair enough, sir, but it seems like impressions. I think the phrase is perception is reality. And unfortunately, that seems to be the rule and guide of the day nowadays. So, but Mr. Lima, thank you though, as always, and Commissioner Plechnik, thank you for your insights on that. So I will check that box off. On a day that we should be celebrating the single largest grant in the history of Lake County, we're dealing with falderall. Didn't think I'd ever be able to use that word here. But it's better and it's a little cleaner than what's actually in my mind right now. I'm thinking back to Norman Schwarzkopf and his reference to bovine excrement, in case anybody doesn't know what falderall means. I'm reminded of my dear father's teaching, rest his soul. My father always taught me to never let negative insinuations go unaddressed, especially when they're directed at me. That's why I will not tolerate or sit still when negative insinuations are made against me. The alleged data breach at Board of Elections. Talk about fake news. To call it disappointing to have a person who is in a position of trust, self-identified, a number of offices, to be making, no, to be trying to create a public controversy and resurrect foolishness. Nothing came of it because there was nothing to it. It is frustrating to have to hear this foolishness. I'm concerned that there is no coincidence that on the very day that the single largest grant in the history of Lake County is being talked about, this foolishness is being thrown out as confusion, Many times over the years we've heard the evils of NOACA, the negatives associated with regionalism. President Plechnik, I'll give you credit. During a heated debate at NOACA, not so very long ago, you made a humorous yet pointed statement, I believe in God, not Captain Planet. It reset a lot of minds that day. And I think for the good. Because there were polarizations on both sides of climate action planning. There literally was a protracted battle over the difference between planning and plan. One being an active process, the other being a completed process. Those of us on the planning side prevailed. We utilized language that was taken directly from the congressionally approved language that the EPA is following. And we laid the foundation for Lake County and our fellow counties within the Nowaka region to be competitive on a national basis. We do certificates for best pizza and best ice cream, and we're not even hearing, way to go Paynesville. We laid the foundation, and Paynesville, the leadership in Paynesville, took up the torch and said, got it, Commissioner. Heard you loud and clear, sir. And they delivered. They flipped the script. We hear endlessly how Lake County's participation in Nowaka is detrimental because we will be outvoted by Cuyahoga County and the city of Cleveland. Do the math. $80 million is the lion's share of this cut of the action. We are in the top 25 in the nation because of the work we did at Nowaka, laying the foundation, putting the right language in place, maintaining home rule. And if I can put it in very simple terms, what we say in our house is our business. What our neighbor says in their house is their business. If it's important to Cuyahoga County to talk about Green New Deal and whatever projects they so choose, that is their right. In Lake County, we're far more practical, and we began with an end in mind. How many times have we heard Lake County and Geauga County are pulling down the air quality for the entire region? Not because we're the source polluters. We just happen to be downwind of the source polluters. We very mindfully monetized an obsolete coal-fired power plant. It would have been an albatross, not only to the city of Paynesville, but all of Lake County. And we monetized that. And we partnered with a brownfield, the old Diamond Shamrock, putting that land into productive use in ways that no one had even conceived of. And it was a pleasure to be the matchmaker and working with the Cleveland Foundation, Nowaka, our partners, too numerous to mention here, and I have to just say it that way. To Doug Lewis's credit, he heard us out, took that up and said, we can do this. We used the population of Cuyahoga County and the city of Cleveland. We've set the stage for Paynesville to now be eligible for Department of Energy and Department of Defense funding associated with their distribution system improvements. We are making Lake County attractive. And I'm deeply concerned that when a member of the council for Paynesville comes before us to say thank you in a very enthusiastic way, I must say, and they're asked to hold to 3 minutes. We spend more than 3 minutes on ice cream and pizza. Priorities. Priorities. We are a force to be reckoned with, Lake County. We need to start acting like it. National recognition should be celebrated, not poisoned. Throwing mud on somebody's shoes just to make yours look cleaner is repugnant. Unfortunately, the gentleman has left, but my intention was to say, sir, you can say whatever negative innuendo you want, but I will not sit here silent. I would hate to have my silence deemed as a tacit admission or acceptance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any other old business? Hearing none, any new business to come before the commission? Any new business?
Mr. President.
Mr. Commissioner.
While we have Mr. Lewis here, on top of celebrating the $80 million investment that's going to be made here, which is great for all of Lake County, I want to tell you that working with the city of Painesville has been a joy, and we were able to go to the BZA meeting last week, and I think it was mentioned there by your legal staff that if he would have ever seen the county and Painesville working together the way they have been in his lifetime, he would never have guessed it. So thanks for participating in the creation of the new safety center and the look and feel that we want to do in downtown Painesville. But also, when I first started here, you showed me a list of projects you wanted done, and you're punching them off. The opening of the towers, the square here is going to be beautiful, and I'm looking forward to all that. It's going to be just such a transformation in downtown here and Painesville in general. But you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you for all your work, and thanks for working with us.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Doug Lewis, City Manager for the City of Painesville. I just want to thank you guys. I mean, we have worked with staff, we have worked with the commissioners, and we have a lot of great things going on in Painesville, and a lot of this we could not have done without your assistance, particularly with the square. Phase 3 would not have gotten done if we did not have that funding to move forward. So we certainly appreciate all the assistance you've provided. I mean, Commissioner Hamercheck brought in the Cleveland, and Grace Galucci brought in the Cleveland Foundation and the Gunn Foundation to basically fund putting together the application. So, I mean, that was major for us to receive that $129 million in funding. And it just so happens we were able to work with Cleveland and also Cuyahoga County to improve their application. So, but as far as working with staff, I mean, working with the commissioners, we definitely appreciate all you've done for Painesville lately. I think within the next 5 years, we're going to have a different Painesville and a different downtown because of the various projects that we have going on. And it's because we're all working together. So thank you. I mean, part of it is you kept the administration building here. You kept the jail here. I mean, those are major investments in the downtown. The city definitely appreciates, and we look forward to working with you to make a number of other changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Keep up the good work.
And if I do say so myself, I remember last year when you gave the State of the City, you said, I bet you can't guess the slogan, and I came very near close to guessing it's happening in Painesville, because it is happening. It's just amazing the progress that you've made, as Commissioner Regovich shared, in redeveloping the downtown and bringing business and beautiful new residential developments. You've made Painesville one of the premier locations in Northeast Ohio, and you've done it so quickly. I hope that your whole council understands how great their achievements are and how grateful the people of Painesville and all of Lake County are for your hard work too.
I'm going to bring you guys in for my evaluation.
We'll even give you a nice letter. And you know what? We could even give you a certificate. Why not?
That's right.
The professor gives you an A. But in any event, any more new business?
Mr. President, as long as we're on the subject of new business, you know, we talk about success stories and wanting to amplify them. I don't think we should let this moment pass without saying, this is historic. This is history. This is the single largest grant in the history of Lake County. And again, it flips the script on the naysayers. This shows that we can work together, and quite frankly, when we know the rules, we can be dominant. That's what Lake County should be about, being the best. So maybe we should give some serious consideration to saying, hey, this is a success story. We've done press releases over petty things. An $80 million historic activity, part of a $129 million national action, top 25 in the nation. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Any further new business? Any further new business? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
So moved. Or second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hammercheck,
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Yes. We stand adjourned.